Hello, everyone, and welcome this morning. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Jillian Page. I am a manager of business customer relations at Madison Gas and Electric, MG&E. I've been a United Way donor for about 10 years now and on the Lead United Council since 2019. So again, thank you all for being here. We invited you today as important leadership donors of United Way of Dane County, and we want to thank you for your generosity and leadership in the gifts you have made into the community. We are also here to learn more about how you can get involved with your time and talent by stepping into community's leadership and engaging as leadership donors. For 100 years, United Way has been investing in our community's most pressing needs, helping to support local families as they work to access the building blocks of well-being, a quality education, family supporting jobs, and health supports. United Way knows that by connecting the dots across these areas and addressing systemic historic barriers, more families get what they need to shift from surviving to thriving. And Trent?
Yeah, I'm Trent Kleist. I work at Baker Tilly. I'm a senior manager on our real estate construction audit team here. I've been a United Way donor for about 14 or 15 years since I got out of college. Our team has done a great job of promoting United Way over the years. I've also a Lead United member and council member with Jillian here. So we are happy to host you and this panel. A little bit more background on the Lead United Donor Network. We're excited to host this event today. Our members are community-minded individuals who lead in their workplaces and in our community through their philanthropy. Our network of leaders is invested, compassionate, and focused on Dane County's critical issues, helping make real measurable change. All households who give $1,000 or more annually are recognized as members of Lead United, regardless of checking a box in your pledge form. So thank you all who are part of that. Being part of this donor network provides connections with other committed, engaged community members, professionals, and provides invitations to special events, volunteer opportunities, providing for more personalized experience and growth, professional growth through educational events and opportunities to develop leadership skills. But most importantly, it provides a deeper understanding of the critical issues that Dane County has, how we can make a real measurable change in our community through our annual investment, advocacy, and volunteerism. Last year alone, our 1,700 Lead United households collectively raised over $3.1 million, where undesignated funds were distributed across 67 partner agencies and 111 programs that benefited families in our areas of income, education, health, and early childhood support. Pretty crazy. None of this is possible without our members. So thank you for your time, talent, and treasure. It really helps support our Dane County families. Below in the chat, we are going to add a link tree for more information on how to join or more information on Lead United membership, how to get more involved, and the donor network, and also the Lead United LinkedIn group. With that, I'd like to introduce our panel discussion facilitator, Angela Jones, the Community Impact Director for Income at the United Way of Dane County.
Good morning, and thank you so much, Lead United, for sponsoring this event and giving us this opportunity to be here. We thank you for all that you are doing for United Way in providing funds so that we can invest those back in programs in the community. So thank you so much for letting us be here this morning. As Trent said, I'm Angela Jones. I'm one of the Community Impact Directors here. My area is income, and we're here today to talk a little bit about the housing space that I am in for Dane County, what that looks like, challenges to building affordable housing, and hearing from two of our partner agencies who work with us directly to assist families in Dane County. We will leave time for questions at the end, so please write down any questions that you might have or put them in the chat box, and we will get to those near the end of the presentation. Dane County has been recognized as a great place to live, as we all know, but that's not true for all growing members in our community. Even pre-COVID, we faced an housing, even pre-COVID, we faced an affordable housing shortage and families were struggling to keep their heads above water. Now, post-COVID, we still see families struggling. Prices for apartments continue to rise. There's barely any single family housing, and many employers are not paying enough wages for people to be able to provide for themselves as well as for their families. Next slide, please. And so we're going to spend a little time getting to know a little bit more about United Way and the work in the income area. Next slide. So just as a reminder, United Way work is about systemic change, which need to occur collectively to help better the health of our community. Community impact, my department's strategic priority, is to lead collective impact to advance family well-being in Dane County. Collective impact is key, which means all of us working together towards the common goal of changing people's lives to better the health of our community. We do this while engaging local nonprofits, businesses, community leaders, donors, volunteers, and families to address the big picture issues. No one person or organization can do this alone. And then if you could switch to the next slide for me. Thank you. In order to build family well-being, we need a collective effort towards increasing access while decreasing barriers for family. To effectively have a collective impact in our community, we need all of us to remember that families have multiple needs to meet their own goals: housing, careers, childcare, education, and healthcare. Social changes require relationships and systemic, collective, and long-term efforts. Nonprofits do amazing work in this area of expertise, in their area of expertise. And the community needs to know that we all are working together, not in silos. And together we can change family well-being here in Dane County. We, United Way, and all of you lead collective impact to advance family well-being in Dane County. That is so very important. Next slide. And then why this work really matters, because we are facing a lot of racial inequities. Racial inequities create barriers for people to be successful. Therefore, system change will be hard to obtain if we are all not working towards collective impact. In all the focus areas that we are working on here at United Way, we see great disparities and overrepresentation for BIPOC communities. Historic systems of exclusion like redlining, which was a systemic approach to keep people of color from living in certain areas by refusing to finance home loans or provide insurance to protect their properties. This also impacted people of color's ability to obtain credit. There were written covenants that excluded specific groups from purchasing land in certain areas, or deed restrictions, thereby making home ownership impossible in many areas in Madison for these groups. And then, of course, as I mentioned earlier, our affordable housing stock is really low in our community, as it is across the country. And as of the first of this month, we had 443 singles on our list and 69 families on our community's coordinated care system, where families are waiting, or where these individuals are waiting to get into the next affordable housing unit. And while we are developing new units in our community, the majority of these new units are deemed workforce housing. So they are being made for individuals and families that can pay above 30% of their income on housing. And then, of course, we all know the impact that this has on children who are homeless, as they are twice as likely to go hungry than other children. They experience 3 times the rate of emotional and behavioral problems, more than twice as likely to have to repeat a school grade. But we all can collectively work together to change this. And so we make change in people's lives through our 4 building blocks for families for well-being. My area of focus this morning is the income area that you can see right there. And that work is where the vision is that Dane County families are economically stable, and our strategies focus on families sustaining wages, securing housing, and food. And we also have a reentry program as well in this area. And we will measure our progress and impact in this area by tracking the percentage of Dane County individuals with household incomes of 200% above poverty level, which is the approximate amount of money needed for a family of 3 to rent a 2-bedroom apartment here in Dane County. We also track housing stability, eviction prevention, and other measures that show us progress towards economic well-being for families. Before we dive a little bit deeper, let's take a few minutes to take a really quick poll. And so, Molly, if you could pull up the poll. Our first one is, what is the minimum wage for Wisconsin? And then the second question is, what is the going rate for a family of 3 to rent a 2-bedroom apartment here in Dane County? And we'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. And are we able to show the results, Molly, as they come in?
We still have some people answering. The only option I have is to end the poll. So we'll see what happens when we end the poll. I'll take a screenshot just in case.
Sure, no problem. So if the answer is for the minimum wage for Wisconsin, it is $7.25, and the going rate for a 2-bedroom apartment for a family of 3 is around $1,810. So hopefully you answered those questions. And then, a family of 3 making a living wage. Oh, there we go. And so 84% of you had the $7.25. And then, 67% of you had the right number for 2-bedroom apartments. We must have a lot of people that's very engaged in the community and know what's happening. So thank you all. Yes. And so we would really love for families and individuals to be able to make more. So a family of 3, 2 adults and 1 child would need to make a living wage of $20.93 an hour each to live comfortably here in Dane County. So each of the adults. And so keep this reality in your mind as you're listening to our panelists this morning. And so with that, I have here with me this morning, David Haviland, who is a senior manager at Baker Tilly, Don Bernards, who is a partner at Baker Tilly. He is also the chair of our United Way's Affordable Housing Fund Committee and a member of our housing delegation here at United Way. We also have 2 of our wonderful partner agencies with us this morning. We have Andrea Sanders, who is the housing director of CAC. And last but not least, we have Cindy Browning, who's the new executive director at the Road Home. And so this is the second agency that I've had the pleasure of working with Cindy at. And so welcome everyone this morning. Thank you so much for being here. We have built-in time, as I mentioned, for Q&A with our panelists at the end. So during our discussion this morning, please put your questions in the chat and at the end, or write them down so you don't forget them, and we will try to get to all of them. If there are questions that we are unable to answer during our time together today, we will do our best, if we have your information, to get back to you to be able to respond to your questions. So no one's questions will get unanswered. So let's go ahead and get started. And so we'll start this morning with David. David, housing is an issue all across the country and the world. When I think about Baker Tilly, I think about tax guidance, counseling, but your agency is actually about a whole lot more. And your agency is very deep in the housing space. Can you share with us this morning, what is your role in your agency's interest in the housing space in Dane County?
Sure. Thanks, Angela. Thanks for having me. Man, that picture of me was old. A lot more hair there. Anyway,
You still
so
look amazing.
no, thanks, Zach. It's got to be the Baker Tilly stuff. But so yeah, thanks for having me. I'm part of the housing consulting group here at Baker Tilly, and we work with a wide range of clients, but all of which are involved in the production of housing for varying income levels. And my personal role in the industry is the production of housing market studies that analyze, both affordable and market rate housing for developers and or institutions financing these developments. So I had a few slides running through a bit of the process, but I guess in the interest of time, we could kind of skip to, I think, slide number 16 will kind of summarize a bit about what the final product that we kind of come up with here.
Wonderful.
A couple more down, I think. So there we go, that one right there. So what we do is we're analyzing projects as we engage with developers who are looking to add units to a certain market. We're engaging with developers and we're judging those markets, evaluating the appropriateness of the proposed development in any market. So what we're doing is we're calling comparables in the area. And this is an example of kind of the end result of those calls and just a small piece of the studies we do, but just gives you an idea of, the information that we're gathering in our market studies. So a lot to do with competitive supply. So we're looking at rental rates, existing amenities in the market, occupancy rates as we go forward. So a lot of our clients are, again, developers and tax credit housing agencies that are allocating tax credits, as well as lenders and any sort of agencies that are lending towards or offering grants towards housing. So that's kind of what we do and kind of how we get there. And it allows us to comment on trends that are going on in any certain market and to be aware of certain trends that are going on and how we can make sure a proposed development is really it's going to remain marketable in any market. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And so that is amazing. I had absolutely no idea all of that was going on and happening at Baker Tilly. So we're so happy to be able to have the opportunity to partner with you. So as you are doing all this evaluation and analyzing data and information, doing that comparison, what are you seeing as the greatest housing needs and challenges in Dane County?
Yeah, I
believe you had some slides on that.
You can go to the next slide and I'll kind of talk into it, but there's a lot of challenges in Dane County and across the nation. And I guess, they all revolve around the lack of supply of housing and the pricing of the housing that is available. So it's become a real problem for really all income levels, both renter and owner. So, in Madison, we've been lucky. We've had a strong housing market that's just been bolstered by several factors, including, the university. We have a diversified employment base. And the employment and population growth has been off the charts, but recent years have been no different. But with that, demand is continually outpacing supply, and it puts us in an environment of very high rent growth and increasing occupancy levels. So, with that, I'd like to kind of move on to these slides. This is kind of showing kind of the trends that we're seeing. This slide is intended to give an idea of the size of the overall Madison rental market, and it defines the submarkets and their proportions of the overall market. So, these numbers do exclude though Iowa, Columbia, and the kind of the outlying Dane County, but they represent about 84% of the overall market. So as you can see here, West Madison makes up the largest share, about 22% of the market. So a good share there, but as a percentage of submarket inventory, it's no surprise downtown is the highest number of or highest percentage, I should say, of 4- and 5-star developments. And what we mean by that is kind of the luxury, market rate development. It's recently constructed with, great materials, an abundance of amenities. That's what we're calling that 4- and 5-star. And then, as a percentage of submarket inventory, we're seeing that Sun Prairie right now is currently adding the greatest percentage of units going forward right now. So then the next slide, if we move on to that, is looking at the vacancy rate trends that we're seeing. In the top row shows the average vacancy rate for the trailing 5-year period, about 3.9% for the Madison market overall. Whereas the middle 2 rows are highlighting 22 annual and the 23 year-to-date vacancy rates. And you can see, much tighter occupancy rates here. So it's showing that those two time periods are really, the amount of units available is really decreased for any renter looking for a place to live. As we look forward to the next couple of years, it's expected that vacancy rates will creep up a bit to become more in line with previous years, but still, below 5%. So really, and that's kind of the metric of a strong market is a 5% vacancy rate. So still very strong. As we look at the next slide, this just graphically shows where we stand with respect to vacancy rates in each market. And, with the exception of East Madison, which is currently at like a 5.1, I think 5.1%, we're about 2 to 4%. So very strong market, I guess you could say, but also very tight and very challenging for those looking for housing or those looking for, needing to turn over into a new unit. So with those high vacancy rates comes high asking rents. So the next slide gets into, some of the asking rents we're seeing in each of these markets. And, not surprisingly, downtown is posting the highest asking rents, both overall for all product type and that 4 and 5 star. And the third row here I found interesting is it just highlights kind of the average premium we're seeing for asking rents with the higher end product. So, for instance, downtown, if you're the 4 and 5 stars, about 400, 4.25 more than just the regular, non 4 or 5 star unit in the downtown area. So quite a premium for that 4 and 5 star product. Again, we're highlighting the 22 annual and the 23 year to date here. So, we see quite a jump in rental rates. The 22 average is about 7.5% increase. I would argue, just based on our primary research that we have with property managers, that that's probably light. Unfortunately, we talked to a property manager with a huge inventory of units throughout the Madison market. Some projects they were seeing closer to 15% increases. So that could equate to $150, $200 increase per month annually for those tenants, which is very challenging, especially when you decide, okay, we might not be able to afford this. Let's look elsewhere. And all of a sudden you look elsewhere and there's 2% vacancy. Those rents are also probably increasing very high as well. And the next slide again is just asking rents graphically showing how the main takeaway here is, I guess, the spike in asking rents in 2022 and a hopeful slight leveling off in 23 as some of the vacancy rates increase and, we get a little easing, but it's still an increase. So I guess as we pause here, what's causing these high occupancy rates and large increase in rental rates? Well, obviously, and broadly speaking, demand has just been greater. I mean, the increase in household formation, whether it be through in-migration to our strong employment base, or is it splitting of existing households? That household formation has been faster than any growth in inventory that we've been able to add. Also, I would argue the rising home ownership costs via interest rates, maybe forcing some buyers out of the market right now. They're forcing them to rent longer, hanging onto their unit, not turning over, not allowing those units to turn over to other folks. So that's been an issue. And in some markets, it's what we've noticed over the past several years is just a preference to rental, the shift to rental. So it's really a limiting supply and leading to the constrained supply. There's just been a shortage of single family inventory. We've all heard about it. But what that does is it, forces would-be buyers to remain renters. There's just nothing out there to buy, even if they are ready. And I think Don will touch on this a little bit. Construction, material, and labor costs are huge. And as we talk about interest rates, again, it's just, those are increasing, kind of keeping some buyers on the sidelines. With that construction cost too, it's the new units that are being added or forced to be added at a higher price point, in order to make that project work. So there's been kind of an overall demand for luxury units and an overall supply, where the supply is coming is on the luxury end just to make the numbers work. Yeah. Quickly, I'll speed it up here. Slide 23 or the next slide. I just want to give a kind of pivot to the affordable market. Here we're showing a sampling of Section 42 LIHTC development surveyed in 4 selected Madison markets. It's not the full inventory of affordable, but it does give a great idea of how the market's performing with respect to vacancy levels in the affordable side. And And as you can see here, the LIHTC market's even tighter than the market rate market as a whole. Average vacancy rate of about 1.2%. So just extreme pent-up demand for housing units targeting lower income households. The next slide is highlighting Dane County LIHTC rent limits for a 60% AMI 2-bedroom unit. And it's pointing out here that the large increases in rental rates is not only being seen in the market rate segment, also the LIHTC market, averaging about 6.3% over this time period. So obviously, income levels don't keep up with the pace of rent increases. Turnover becomes an issue as tenants are forced to pay greater percentage of their income towards rent and not able to spend on other items or services that are required to kind of run the household. So it becomes very taxing. Next couple slides, I just wanted to compare, contrast typical market rate versus LIHTC developments. First I selected a couple market rate developments here to highlight quality of product as well as the rental rates. So as you can see, this is 2 recently constructed developments in Madison. Market rate, very nice, great build quality, aesthetically pleasing, but high rental rates. It could be $1.80 to $2.80 a square foot, depending on the unit type. So the next slide will show how does that compare with a couple LIHTC developments that are recently constructed. And what I wanted to point out here is similar appearance and quality of construction, but at drastically reduced rental rates due to the LIHTC program. So just want to show the importance of, the LIHTC program. It's driving by these developments, you don't know they're income restricted projects. They're well constructed, managed well by the property managers and the owners. So these are great products, but the importance of the Section 42 program to lower these rental rates for our households in the community. And then the next slide here is probably the most important aspect. It's highlighting, the households targeted at each development type and the income requirements associated for each. So as you can see, the market rate development in Madison is generally only available to households earning north of $55,000 a year, and that's for a 1-bedroom. So that drastically increases with larger unit size units. Whereas the LIHTC development, if we include 30% AMI units in our development, that lower minimum income lowers down to $23,000. $36,000 if we include 60% AMI units. So that really helps to fill the need of these lower income households in our community. Again, pointing out the importance of a public-private partnership in the Section 42 program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you so much, David. That was so much valuable information. And yes, we hear from our clients and our case managers that they definitely are seeing increases in rents, but it sounds like no matter what your income in, you are seeing higher and increased rents in our community. There's been a lot of conversations around, being able to build, more affordable housing units, but we also have population in our community that also want to get into single family homes, right? They want that home ownership because that's, for a lot of us, that's the opportunity to be able to build wealth and be able to pass that down to our families. So what is the need of apartments versus kind of single family homes in our community? And are we going to be able to build ourselves out of this crisis? Is that even a possibility for us?
Yeah, varying opinions on the first part of, types of housing, whether it's owner occupied, rental, and the income levels that targeted and the effects of providing each of those, that can be debated. But I think everyone's beginning to understand how important it is and will continue to be to provide housing of all types, of all income levels in the community. I would argue that, a good diversified mix of housing is important as preferences change, because currently, what we're seeing is rental housing seems to have more momentum as a percentage of home ownership across the country has consistently decreased. But is that due to housing preference and wanting flexibility, or are people forced to make that choice because there's a lack of supply, pricing, interest rates? So I definitely don't think it's a one size fits all approach, but I would agree that single family is one of the biggest ways to build wealth over a lifetime. And what's also often overlooked is single family housing and a mortgage locks in your rental rate for 30 years. Whereas when you're renting, you're at the whim of a landlord who they have to really increase rental rates because of operating costs are increasing just as fast. So being able to lock in a mortgage is very important. So there always will be that need for single family homes.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Because when you are living in an apartment, you're helping to increase the wealth of that property manager or that, the owner of those properties, right? But if you are able to live in a single family home, then you can build that wealth that you can then pass down for generations or, keep that home. So thank you. Were there anything else that you wanted to say around us being able to build ourselves out of the crisis? What's kind of your opinion in that space?
I mean, I certainly don't see it happening in the short term, the way things are progressing in like recent years. I mean, there's just huge demand for units coupled with a lack of inventory. And, more importantly, it's a demand across all income levels. So, we're, Don and my group or our group is very involved in all those income levels. So we haven't seen a slowdown or really a dent being made in the need for those for units.
Yeah, so it's like we're going to have to be extremely creative in how we manage or how we tackle our housing crisis here in our community. But I think bringing all of our heads together around what are the best creative solutions is the best opportunity, and that's where collective impact really takes shape in our community. So thank you so much, David, for that. That was amazing. Thank you so much. Such great information that you have provided for us this morning. And so I just want to take a couple of seconds just to say thank you. And I don't think we have a poll at this moment, but we are going to switch gears ever so slightly. We've had a lot of conversations about, the lack of affordable housing. Can we build ourselves out of this crisis in the community? And I know I hear from developers that they're trying to get as many bodies in a square foot as we possibly can in our community. And so that's going to be challenging, right? Because we have so many more people waiting to be able to get into affordable housing. So, we know one side of it, but let's look at a little bit of that picture of the other side of, what it takes really to be able to build affordable housing in our community. So Don, thank you. And thank you again for chairing our Affordable Housing Fund Committee here at United Way, where we are also helping to increase the affordable housing stock in our community. So we thank you very much for your leadership in that area. So what are you seeing as the challenges to build more affordable housing as you work with developers on different projects in our community?
Angela, that's a fantastic question. And yeah, we just this confluence of factors right now is making it. I've been in the affordable housing industry 26 years, and there's always something going on, right? And we had the recession, which I'll actually touch on, 12, 13 years ago, but in COVID, and there's just a lot going on. And we can go to the next slide. So really, we've got a number of challenges right now, and you've seen it, and it's between construction costs and interest rates and operating expenses. I'll get into a lot of those details here in the next 10 minutes or so, 5-10 minutes. So really everyone talks about construction costs, right? And I'll get into a little bit more detail from these slides, but you've all seen it. Construction demand, again, it's hard to believe, but even from the recession, again, 12 years ago, we'll get into a slide in a few minutes, that we're still actually pent up demand from that. Where pent up demand construction really slowed down during COVID, of course. We've all heard about supply chain, time is money. We've talked about labor shortages, the great resignation and so forth, inflation in general with the macro economy, and the war in Ukraine. It really is affecting direct construction here. Believe it or not, a lot of nickel comes from Russia. Nickel is in stainless steel products. So just kind of all these things coming together, talking about construction costs. Next slide, please. Here's just factors. So CBRE, just a national group, does a lot of research around multifamily construction. According to their research, construction costs year over year, 11.5% in 2021, 14% in 2022. So that's 25.5. I've seen some reports say as much as 30% over those 2 years. Again, when the historical long-term average is 2 to 4%, increase. So we're just seeing, right, just you see it on single family houses, the same for multifamily, per unit. Again, if, this is crazy, probably before COVID, we saw an apartment unit cost construction about 150 to 160,000 per unit. Where are we at? That's 2020. Here we are in 2023. That's 190 to 203,000. 25-30% rent increase. Construction cost increase. It's like, how do we? And back to Dave's points, the newer builds, we're seeing rents, not just going up 10-15% to the average, but even higher to pay for some of these costs. Next slide, please. Here again, this is a really interesting slide. These are just kind of new permits for kind of multifamily and so forth. Look at that pre-pandemic, pre-recession, way in the early 2000s. We hit the recession, 2007, 8, going into 8, and so forth. We're in the recession for a while. It takes a little while to come out of the recession. So just look at that pent-up demand from the 2000s. So we're trying to get back into it, and then we kind of hit the COVID, and we're kind of like flat during COVID. And so all that pent-up demand, we talk about, can we build our way out of it? We are so far behind. You see statistics that Dane County is going to grow by another 100,000 people over the next decade. We're short today, another 100,000. It's going to take all these brains on this call and many others to kind of get together. So again, supply and demand economics. We have so much demand. Next slide, please. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but you all heard about supply chain, and it is real. And just the thing to take away from here is time is money. Look at all these, this was a year ago and things are easing up, but there's still some electric components which are taking 14 and 16 months to get from ordering when it was usually a couple months. So look at all these and just how much time just the COVID really put behind. And again, like I said, we're catching up, but still far behind, and time is money. Longer holding costs, higher construction period interest. It's still going to take us a while to get out of the supply chain mess as well. Next slide, please. Labor. We again, you see it in the headlines in newspaper. Back to construction, Bureau of Labor Statistics predicts we need 747,000 more construction workers from both retirements and then just all the work that's out there. Construction workers are in their mid-40s on average. Again, the Great Resignation, as we've all kind of saw, there were a lot of people that resigned. And wages increasing according to Manpower Group, wages increasing faster in the construction trades than many other private sector jobs. Again, there's so much need that people can demand wages, which of course is great for persons working in that. It's just tough when you're on the other side trying to provide housing so it's kind of this imbalance and so forth. So it's good news and bad news. Next slide, please. So back to rising interest rates. I'm sure, again, you've all witnessed this from, buying a car, but trying to buy a house. It factors obviously into the creation of multifamily. So these are year over year, January 22 to January 2023 interest rates. And you can see, many of you heard of Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, HUD loans. These are typical loans for multifamily or apartment projects. So you can see year over year, interest rates up from 1.5% to, 2.25%. What's that mean? And really, what's that mean? Really, our next slide kind of gets into that. So we can go to our next slide. What's the impact? So what I did is I took a look at a real 60-unit apartment project that was done in 2020. So that had the lower interest rate at 3.96%. So this is what I call it was not tax credit, but it was moderate. David's or we see that an average rental rate is $1,810 for a 2-bedroom. So this was in Dane County, but not Madison, outlying Dane County market. So in 2020, you look at those rents compared to today's rents, those are, kind of moderate, kind of what we'll call workforce. But if I was trying to do the same project today, everything being, so construction costs staying equal for the time being, the only change was interest rates. I'd be able to borrow less, right? If my interest rate's higher, I have a higher debt service and so forth. But trying to keep the rents the same, I have a shortage of what I could borrow, $1.4 million. So with, again, that interest rate increase, I'd have to increase rents $157 an average per unit to get the same debt sizing. So interest rates have a direct impact on the rents that everyone, any income level, is kind of feeling. Next slide, please. And then this kind of ties it all together between construction costs rising, like we talked about, and interest rates rising, the same project would have to raise rents by $320 per unit to make up these two differences. And again, that's, a 20 to 30%, 22 to 35% rent increase, depending on the type of bedroom. $320 per unit, right? That's significant. And that's why so many of these new products coming online are so much higher, because we have higher interest rates and higher construction costs. So it's overwhelming, really. It's the impact. Next slide, please. I'll be quick on this slide. This is really, with inflation, just costs are increasing. Insurance is a huge cost, right? If you're an owner of a multifamily property and apartment building, on the left-hand side kind of shows, look at that. The blue, 31% of all premiums are rising 16 to 30%. Natural disasters and COVID, there's so many reasons why costs are rising, but operating costs, insurance is a big factor. Next slide. And this is just factual information. Just again, costs are up all over. The city of Madison approved an 18% water increase. MG&E approved electrical rates up 9%. Payroll is up, right? And then ongoing materials, right? If we saw construction costs are up, if I need to maintain my building, well, construction materials are higher. So it goes across the board. And obviously, if my operating expenses are higher, right, I need to increase my rents just to, kind of to break even or create revenue for the owner. So I'll go real quickly. The next slide is land values. Again, the same thing. Really, the main takeaway is you look at the list of 3 deals on the screen. 2021, we did a deal at $14,000 per unit built in the city of Madison. And I'm not saying everything is doubling, but it just directionally in 2023, a 70 unit was $27,000 per unit. And obviously, it's location and this and that, but it just kind of shows land costs are getting higher. Well, how do I pay for land? Well, I need higher rents to get a higher mortgage. So it all kind of factors in, with each other. We can skip over the next few slides, which are about zoning challenges. Maybe one more slide. And just, and then this last slide here is just, it takes so much to build if I don't want to charge $2,500 of rent, right? To pay for all these costs and land and so forth. Then it takes literally a village of resources. And how do I coordinate? It's too hard, right? I mean, that's what I do a lot is work with developers, trying to pull together, this is like 10 or 11 sources. I worked on projects that's taken 10 or 11 sources, to finance, because to keep rents, affordable. So Angela, there's so many challenges right now to build housing, affordable housing.
Yeah, thank you. I know I always try to keep the big picture, and so I always want to know kind of what's the story on each side of, right? And so there's a story, and there's a process, there's other things going on that we need to always keep and factor. And yes, we do need more affordable housing in our community. We have people that are waiting, that are homeless right now, that are waiting for the next affordable housing unit and opportunity. And all this information that you've provided for us on the developer side about the cost going up, which explains, why the rents and things are increasing. So it really does show the picture that, it really does take all of us understanding each person's or each kind of systems operating and what's happening in that space, so that we can all figure out how can we collectively move forward to meet the goals of housing that we have here in our community for our families and for our singles, particularly thinking about our children that are often impacted in this area. So this has been great about, what's happening right now. Don, what are you seeing on the horizon for new developments that might help us meet the needs of gaps in our community?
Yeah, no, I'll be really brief on this. Great, that's a great question, Angela. You can pull up the slides, but it's just so interesting. I talk a lot with my friends at the United Way, and I mean, there's newspaper articles all the time. You look at this, rising rents push them out. New report charts housing concerns. 900 units for missing middle. I mean, you get it. It's affordable housing is such in the lexicon. It's in lawmakers, politicians, obviously everyone on this call. It's so important. And so just the next 3 or 4 slides, there's things at the local level, the state level, the federal level. This is such, I mean, not to use the word lightly, people are using the word pandemic, around the lack of quality affordable housing. And it was referenced, I forget who referenced it a little bit earlier. A lot of it is about zoning and density. And many of you in the Madison area know the city of Madison is going through a redo of their bus rapid transit system. And they're going to be building new exchange sites and so forth. There's going to be a lot of emphasis about building quality, affordable housing with larger densities. By densities, I mean, how many units can you get in a site? There is actually just a site, the University Research Park on Mineral Point Road. Many of you might know it near CUNA Mutual and so forth. There was a proposal. University Research Park controls the site, but it's it's going to be a main that Mineral Point Road is going to be a main route of the revised transit system. And what I heard just this week is the proposal was awarded to someone who's going to do like a 10 or 12 story housing tower there. I mean, that area of town, maybe. But so what this is all getting at is how can I fit more units, right? If I can fit more units, there's economies of scale. I can hopefully have lower rents. So imagine to see that. Pay attention to the Madison BRT, bus rapid transit, and you're going to see a lot of housing along there. So that's kind of a big push from within the city of Madison and zoning. Next slide. The next slide, just briefly, again, the city of Madison, we're literally past, they had $7 million in their affordable housing fund. They're raising it to $10 million. The city of Madison realizes there's a need, and the city of Madison puts these dollars to fill gaps, right? We talk about how much can rents afford and debt, but to build these, I need, like my slide of many sources. This is one source, and the city of Madison realizes it's a big need. So the city of Madison has been very progressive in this space. Next slide. Again, these are just to kind of show that this is being addressed by local, state, and federal. Here at the state level, I'm spending a lot of time in is there's a state low-income housing tax credit, which actually, again, helps fill gaps in housing. And it's in front of the assembly here currently in the state, and would be to raise the amount that's currently from $7 million per year to $10 million per year. And it would be a $10 million or a 10-year stream. So $3 million per year times 10 years is $30 million more. But that's actually getting all this math. That 30 million is actually multiplied by another 10 years. Long story short, it's lots of more units that could be generated from just this little change in the state legislature. And we're talking several thousand more units can be generated over the next 10 years just by this one change in state legislature. So I can definitely keep the group associated with that, but I'll be at a hearing at the Capitol later this month on that. And then just last slide is the president's proposed budget. I mean, this affordable housing, workforce housing is coming out of the president's mouth, out of his cabinet and so forth. Again, this is just proposed. This is not law. Obviously, it's a long process to get things, put into the budget, but you can just see the tone of these things. I'm going to talk about maybe at the end of today, many of you have heard about vouchers, Section 8 vouchers. In the president's budget is to create 200,000 more vouchers, brand new, meaning that someone who's struggling to pay rent could get this voucher. This would be the largest increase since 1974. I mean, it's that big. Doubling the amount of low-income housing tax credits, which could generate another 1.5 million of affordable units over the next 10 years. And then back to home ownership, which Angela and Dave touched on, there would be a new neighborhood housing tax credit to help between the lower income communities and lower income families to generate the gap between what it costs to build and what someone can afford to pay. So it is out there. It's a struggle. Obviously, we know the political process to get things passed is tough, but there's a lot of eyes on these sources of funds, local, state, and federal.
Yeah. Thank you. That is really great. So what it's sounding like is on the horizon that there is hope, which is what we really need in our community and what we want for everyone. Because once you lose hope, then, a lot of other things can also start spiraling. So there is hope on the horizon. So I do believe now we do have another poll that we want to give to folks. And so Molly, if you don't mind, we're going to do this really, really quickly. And so what type of housing do you feel is most important for our community to focus on? And this is really for you to decide and just kind of give your input on what you think is most important. I will do my vote and submit it. And so hopefully all of us will do that. But I think, in the interest of time too, I'm going to keep us rolling as people maybe are still continuing to vote. But you did hear both David and Don talk about this a little bit, is that we really need a little bit of everything in our community to be able to meet the needs of every single residence here in Dane County. And so everybody can have their ideas of what that might look like, or what their needs are, what their family particular needs are. All of that is extremely important. And so thank you for taking that poll. Another voice that I want to make sure that is here. Oh, it looks like 41% said 2 or 3 bedroom apartments, because we do know that the larger size apartments for larger families are in great need, but in demand, but they're not necessarily available at the lower end and the cost for families that are greatest in need. And so let's talk about that. The families that are greatest in need in our community. Lots of things happening, lots of things going on. Lots of families still struggling even post-COVID. And so, Andrea, you are one of our United Way partner agencies that we are investing in to help move families out of poverty towards economic stability. We also know things are still challenging pre-COVID, and recovery is taking a longer and harder for our families. We also know that CAC provides some wonderful programs to help families in our community. So let's talk about that a little bit from your work. And so I know one of the collaborations that you are a part of is our Reducing School Mobility collaboration. So can you tell us a little bit about what that is and that collaboration, and how do families get connected to your program?
Absolutely. So the collaboration, this program basically focuses on families with school-age children at risk of homelessness. The program provides comprehensive services to stabilize families by keeping children in school and avoiding interruptions in their learning due to truancy and changing schools. How do they get connected with the program, with us regarding the program? So we work with 5 elementary schools, Leopold and Pittsburgh, and then on the north side, there's 4 other schools: Mendota, Bopers, Lakeview, Lindbergh, and Lindbergh Elementary. And so this program includes intensive housing services, so case management, connection to resources and referrals, housing navigation, short-term financial assistance such as rent and utility assistance. We can also assist with security deposits if the family is looking to be stabilized in a new home, as well as help remedy any issues that prevent families from securing stable housing. So the way that it's a collaboration. So we connect using a referral process. So the school's social workers or joining forces for families refers the family to CAC. And then the family that needs assistance, they must have at least 1 child in one of those elementary schools. And then the case manager, our case managers go out and meet with the families to sign program agreements, go over the program, create housing stability plans. We go over budgeting, and then we also, in all of that, collect lease and utility statements for any financial assistance that the family may need. Now, with this program, the family must also have some sort of economic need for the assistance for rent or utilities, meaning they would have to be in a past due status.
Thank you so much. So how does the investment from United Way help to address the challenges that families are facing?
Well, the United Way investment helps us address many challenges families are faced with in our community regarding educating, caring for, and supporting their families financially, with, like we just spoke about, rising rent, not having adequate or no health care at all, along with the cost of living not really aligning with minimum wage. It creates hardships where families do fall behind on rent and utilities. So some of the families we do work with, they experience hardships and loss of income due to illness, where they do have a job, where they're just changing jobs, so they're in between checks. reduced hours, emergency expenses. And then we, of course, with single parenthood, having additional, with inflation and everything, that additional burden on you, along with just being a single parent. Most of these families, and as I stated, they do live paycheck to paycheck. And so any little interruption that I've mentioned could result in a 5-day notice from their landlord. The program allows us to react quickly as we're able to be the additional support for families experiencing these common hardships. And then we are also able to become the mediator with the landlords to prevent eviction, along with the utility providers to prevent suspension and their bill.
Thank you. So it sounds like you're amazing staff that are providing case management. You know, that speaks really highly to having quality case management, because you build the trust with the client. And so they will tell you when they're getting to those hard places or something that is happening with their family. So can you speak to us a little bit then about what case managers or what you are learning from your clients as you are working with them? What are you seeing as the greatest needs for your clients? And what will it take to be able to address those needs for the families so they don't end up homeless?
Honestly, we see a huge need for assistance in rent and utilities, as well as assistance in finding affordable housing. And then also we can find it, but if we can secure affordable housing. So the rental assistance that was implemented during the pandemic, it wasn't well received by all landlords, as some of them became a bit hesitant, to renew leases once they've ended. So if a tenant receives assistance, some landlords would view that as the tenant not being financially stable or have financial stable income. Not to mention there's a wait list for assistance. So even if they are able to provide, there's a wait time, there's a little lag, because it's such a huge need in getting that check over to landlords, which in return, the tenant is of course late for their payment. So you have to be in again in arrears for that. So then again, you're putting yourself in arrears in order to even get assistance to help with that. So finding alternative housing for clients have also become complicated around this, given that these families would not receive good references or rental history from their past landlords because assistance was used or rent was paid late. So although there's aid that alleviates these evictions and the rental history is still damaged. Within this program, we kind of emphasize with budget and housing stability plan that we offer to educate families for a better management of income and expenses. So this plan analyzes money management, it explains how to improve debt administration, and also with renegotiation. So I feel like building a solid relationship with landlords, education around tenants' rights, that's a huge thing. I've had families who've gotten a 5-day notice and they have put themselves out, moved everything out because they got a 5-day notice, not understanding that there's a process. So and they end up homeless. They're living in a hotel, living in a car because, not understanding the 5-day notice, it's a process in, that eviction. So education around tenant rights, removing some of the barriers within the rental market, like allowing more second chance opportunities when it comes to renting, and then having access to more affordable homes. All of these can prevent families from becoming homeless, I believe.
Great, thank you so much. I know your agency does a lot in terms of programming. Reducing school mobility is just one area that you are involved with us at United Way. You provide a lot of work and assistance, and it sounds like you may be seeing increases in families that are in need in the community. So can you speak to us a little bit about what is your agency's capacity to be able to help families?
Absolutely. So for this program, the Reduce School Mobility, it is short-term, and our goal for 2023 is with the 5 mentioned elementary schools is to help 65 families. We do have a few other programs that I wanted to go over, and you can always go on our website it's on the other slide, but you can always go to our website to read more about these services that we do offer. So we do have food bank where we provide free food to local food pantries. We have a program regarding that is stock boxes, where we help older adults with get nutrition that they need by serving a monthly food package. One of our bigger programs is the Dane County 2.0 Emergency Rental and Utility Assistance Program, where we can pay up to 18 months of arrears rent. You have to, of course, be past due status with other eligibility, and then I think it's 50% AMI, under 50% AMI. The city has announced that this program, the portal, does close May 31st. So we're still taking applications up until the day that the portal closes. We have another program where I know it was to help, where basically there was a lot of assistance with renters, and the mortgage world where homeowners were kind of getting left out. So this program is with the state. It's a WHH program, that Wisconsin Help for Homeowners program, where we're able to pay up to $40,000 towards mortgage, property taxes, utility, and internet. Again, you have to be in arrears. And then we have some other programs where it's the WISH, Rapid Rehousing and Transitional Housing programs. So this group of programs are where participants are pulled from a prioritized and pulled and prioritized by the Balance of State prioritization list to help fill these programs. All the programs do include intensive case management that revolves around clients' housing goals and how they can maintain self-sufficiency and stability after exit. We do have a veterans program, the SVF, where we can assist with services such as security deposits, rent and utility assistance, car repairs, hotel vouchers, and more. We have the next one that we have that is one of my favorites is the Independent Living, and then the WIOA, which is Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. These programs are provided in Jefferson County to help youth that are aging out of the foster care system, as well as young adults who are looking to improve their income through continuing education or finding and increasing employment. We can help with resumes, college tuition, rent assistance, and even childcare. Another program we have veered around children is the ECZ. So it's the Early Childhood Zone program, where we provide housing assistance and eviction prevention and utility assistance to families enrolled in home visiting programs. So the child must be between 0 to 5 years old to be eligible for that program. And one of our newer programs is the Recovery Voucher Program, where you must have documentation of opioid use disorder or documentation of OUD treatment within the 12 months, previous 12 months, where we provide light case management, housing service, so that's connection again to resources and referrals, housing navigation in Dane County or Jefferson County, sober living housing, and financial assistance that includes like the program fees and the rent up to 24 months. The funds that with this program can cover the cost of a bed within a room in a DHS recognized recovery. For more information on these programs, or to see if anyone is eligible, if you know anyone that maybe that we could assist, you can always go to our website, which is the www.cacscw.org, or you can give us a call or even email us, and then we can get you connected in the best way we can.
Thank you so much, Andrea. You answered a lot of questions that folks had submitted pre the meeting, and so hopefully they get those questions answered. I'm going to move on now to Cindy from the Road Home. Thank you, Andrea. Your agency also is a United Way partner agency, but you're providing services through the Panelists rapid rehousing programs, and you also have the Housing and Hope as well as Housing Stabilization Program. So what is the difference between these three programs, and how do families get connected to your program?
Yeah, thank you, Angie. I am happy to be here. Thank you for having me. The Road Home has 14 different housing programs. The three that I'm going to touch on today are funded through United Way, and I appreciate the context that Andrea brings. A lot of the programming that's offered at CAC is similar to the programming that is offered at the Road Home, and collaborations and partnerships are really important. The first program that I wanted to touch on is our Rapid Rehousing and Panelists program, which focuses specifically on collaboration. It is a partnership between the YWCA and the Salvation Army here in Dane County. If a family is identified as homeless, literally living in shelter or a place not meant for habitation, in their car, on the street, they are able to be enrolled as a program participant in our Panelists Rapid Rehousing program. So first, the Salvation Army will identify if they have literal homelessness as an eligibility criteria. They're then referred to the YWCA, and the YWCA will help to navigate and find housing. I heard a lot today. We talked about the lack of housing in our community. Finding it is very difficult for our agencies. So it's really important for us that we have a specific employee who focuses on housing navigation. And through our partnership with the YWCA, we're able to provide case management through the Road Home, and the YWCA is able to connect our participants or the family to housing. So they work with landlords, they identify, they address the barriers that Andrea talked quite a bit about. If somebody has a previous eviction on their record, if they have a lack of rental history, if they have a criminal background, all of these things can be a barrier to securing housing, being accepted into a unit. And so advocacy comes from our staff and also from the Y to try to ensure that these folks are accepted into housing. Once they are secured into a unit, the Road Home is able to then provide wraparound support. So housing first is the approach that our agency models for all of our programs. First, we put people into housing, and then we're able to provide that wraparound support. So case management involves a lot of the similar things that Andrea spoke on. We look at how can we help people understand their financials and money management. We really empower meeting the individual and the family where they're at, looking at a two-generational approach. That's something that's also really important through the Road Home, is that we're looking at a collaboration of the family as a whole versus focusing primarily only on the adult of the home. So we're partnering with other community agencies to provide supports to children in the home simultaneously while we're providing support to the adult that is leading that home. So I think that our Rapid Rehousing Panelists program is really important because it has that strategic collaboration. Families are able to be enrolled in that program for 6 months up to 2 years. So we really look at it a case-by-case basis. What do the families need? Where are they at? How long do they need to be enrolled in our program? From there, I want to share our second program that you asked about, Angie, which is our Housing Stabilization Program, which is a really unique offering that the Road Home provides. So once families have secured that housing, they've been enrolled enrolled in our rapid rehousing Prevalent program. Maybe they are at that 2-year mark and they're stably housed, they've got employment or they've got income, they've been connected to the resources that they need, but they're just needing a little bit more a case management. They don't need any financial help toward their rent. They may not need help finding housing, but they would benefit from having a person engaged in their life more regularly. We have a housing stabilization program, which is offering case management only. And it's specifically for families who have graduated or have exited out of one of our other traditional programs. So it's really exciting because it offers that continuation of case management, which is a support person to someone. It's somebody that's connected to the resources. We're up to date on what the resources are within the community. They're ever changing. And I think as we've realized throughout the pandemic, opportunities are ever changing. And that can be really difficult for our families to navigate, for them to understand, for them to know, where can I go for help? What can I receive? Am I eligible? Was I eligible, but maybe I'm not now? Our case management really is able to stay up to date and support the families to help them continue to receive the supports that they need in order to ensure that they have stabilization long-term, in order for them to have that independence and self-sufficiency. Our housing stabilization program, they can be receiving that case management for up to an additional year. This is a newer offering that the Road Home has provided. This program was started a few years ago, and we're really starting to see that our families are exiting from our other programs and wanting to enroll in that additional case management. Right now, the referrals for that program come specifically through our agency, but as we have openings, if and when they are available, we partner with our other community agencies to identify the families that could benefit from that housing stabilization program. And then the third program that you mentioned is our Housing and Hope, which is a really strong program for the Road Home for quite some time. Housing and Hope we have 2 properties that we actually own as an agency. Each have 15 units. So they're apartment complexes. One is located in the Vera Court neighborhood, north side of Madison. The other is on Balsam Road, which is more toward the west side. We have 2 case managers that are on site Monday through Friday at the actual units that the families are residing at. So we consider those our on-site programs. We have, this is a permanent supportive program, meaning that the families can reside in these units until their youngest child turns 18. So this is a housing program where we're seeing longevity. We see families that are in this program for several years, many years. And they're receiving a reduced cost in their rent. It's affordable to them. We're able to provide that case management on site, which is really important for us. And this has been a creative way for the agency and the Road Home to ensure that we have that housing available. As we've talked about, the market is really difficult and finding housing can be really difficult. And by having this, having these 2 apartment complexes, we have the ability to assure that we have units available to our families. We partner with Commonwealth Development as a property management company for our Balsam Road units, and we partner with Meridian Group as a property manager for our Vera Court units. So we have found that to be a really successful partnership. It provides a level of differential for the families. So we are showing up as case managers, as support, and we have a property company who's showing up as a landlord, who's showing up as the person that's enforcing rents. And we're still able to build that rapport, build the trust with our families, have the conversations that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise with their landlord. We're bridging that gap. We're a mediator between the property manager and the family and the participant. Angie, you asked how folks are enrolled in our programs. All of our programs outside of housing stabilization, which is the continuation of case management, all of our programs are referred by coordinated entry. Coordinated entry is a system-wide effort in Dane County where if a person is identified as homeless, they're referred to, for example, the Beacon, which is another nonprofit organization in our community, who will perform what's called a VI SPDAT, which is an assessment. This assessment is based on the level of need that this family has. How long have they been homeless? Have they had multiple instances of homelessness within that year? Has it been longer than a year? Do they have minor children? Do they have a disability? Are they pregnant? Do they have mental health issues or concerns that have created a level of need that's greater? And so they fill out this assessment at our partner agencies. They're put onto a housing prioritization list. And then when we have openings, we are able to pull based on the level of need from that coordinated entry list to fill them into our programs.
Thank you so much, Cindy. That was a wealth of information, and your organization provides a range of housing assistance and programs to meet the needs of many different types of families in our community. And so that is so important. I just want to kind of wrap up with just this one final question to you. Andrea mentioned a lot about, the challenges that she sees in the community with their clients. Was there anything that the Road Home wanted to add to that list? And then I think we're going to open it up then for questions for our audience.
Yeah, I think Andrea touched a lot on barriers to accessing housing, and I touched a little bit on that too. So it's sometimes very difficult for landlords or property managers to accept the families that we're working with. And so I think that that's a need that requires more education, support, advocacy, empathy of understanding the needs and the barriers that exist. Transportation is huge. That's a very difficult piece within our community. So it's really important, like our Housing and Hope program that I mentioned, it's located near schools, a food resource, healthcare. Because transportation is difficult within our community, we want to ensure that we have proximity to the resources that are going to help our families thrive. So I would say outside of just gas cards or bus vouchers, car repairs, right? It's difficult to get to work. It's difficult to get your kids to the doctor or to school if you don't have a reliable vehicle. And so transportation and childcare, those have been two really big issues that we find preventing our families from being able to continue that stability moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I hope you all have kind of had an opportunity to get a kind of a whole picture of everything that is happening in our community, whether it be from, analyzing the housing space within our community, what's available, what's not available, what that market trends look like, understanding what the barriers are and challenges are to even building more affordable housing in our community, and then hearing from our partner agencies from the partner agency perspective, as well as, what are the greatest challenges that are facing our participants. So you can see it really does take a really collective group of individuals and all of us working towards a common goal, really to have that collective impact to really make sure that we are helping families move towards that economic stability and that family well-being, which is what United Way would love to see for all of our community. And I'm sure you all are here this morning because you have that same hope for families as well. So with that, we were going to do another poll, but we are going to open it up now for questions from from everyone. Are there questions that we can ask our panelists this morning, Molly?
We'd like to open it up in the chat. If anybody has any questions after hearing our speakers today, we can go into those. We do have one that's asking about community resistance. Did we talk about that at all?
Yeah, and Molly, I can ask this one. I appreciate it. I had to step away for a couple of minutes and I didn't know if we touched on this. I know we talked about, sorry, step back. Luke Humley, co-chair of Lead United. I work at Exact Sciences. I appreciate everyone coming here today and talking about these important issues to our community. We talked a lot about financial factors, zoning factors, things that are barriers to people being able to get affordable housing. I'm curious, and Don, this might have been in your slide deck. I think we zoomed past it. I think I saw the word NIMBY, and I'm curious, community resistance, what do we see as donors that support United Way? What information can we arm ourselves with when we talk to our neighbors and coworkers, friends about these sorts of issues? And then are we seeing improvements in this area, or we see some of the same sort of levels of resistance? And I'll stop there and let the group respond. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great question.
I can start and others can definitely chime in. And I've been, Luke, part of just numerous conversations around this from, something as simple as there are still issues, right? I think we think, right, Madison, progressive, we think, everyone's on this call, your neighbors supported, but, I've been to neighborhood meetings where someone wants to maybe add a dwelling either onto their backyard or something like that, or maybe make a duplex. And there's challenges to that, right? We think as a community we want it, but yet a lot of people don't because it changes the flavor or of their neighborhood. So it's a process, and I think it's education. There's been, back to larger multifamily deals and more with affordable tenants. There's actually academic research saying property values have increased because of it and stabilized neighborhoods. So there's the academic side. I don't have the silver bullet on that, but it's still a process. I'm sure others may have comments as well.
I mean, I think the NIMBYism continues, but it's really for all, especially multifamily housing types, and it's usually veiled in a traffic concern or I want to make sure this building remains historical, where they didn't care about that a year ago when there was no housing proposal. So it still exists. There was one, closer to downtown. It was for a market rate project. There's another one I just out in Westport for a closed restaurant that all of a sudden the neighbors wanted to be designated historical. So there's no more, market rate multifamily built on the site. So it's still there. And it poses a problem for the addition of units for sure.
Would anybody else like to respond to that question? I know I hear it a lot from the homeless perspective. There's a lot of conversations happening when the new men's shelter was going to be built, and also when Salvation Army was talking about building their new facility. So some of it was related to, safety, but others was related to not really fully understanding the services that were provided. So I think we still have a lot of education and awareness to happen here in the community. And so now all of you who have been here this morning can also help go out and advocate and provide greater knowledge and information to others in the community so that they fully understand kind of all sides of the story and the need, and how we are trying to really help build more family well-being for individuals in our community. And I see that Jillian has a question that says, what resources or engagement is available to property owners to get a better understanding of resources available to renters? Would anyone like to take that question? I know Tenant Resource Center does a lot around landlord engagement and information on landlord-tenant relationship, as does the Apartment Association of South Central Wisconsin. I know that a lot of our case managers who are working with landlords are doing a lot of that, making sure that the case manager, making sure that the landlord or the property manager knows that they are there as a resource. But does anyone else want to add anything to that?
I was gonna say, Angela, yes, absolutely. I do. Sometimes I've sent landlords or property management to a tenant resource center to understand what their tenants' rights are, because sometimes I've heard where a new landlord, so I didn't know, or so things like that. So where there is, they have other. They also mediate and do a lot of that. And I know that with the program core ending with the city, there's going to be more things to come regarding that mediation with landlords. So that is something that's going to be kind of turned from where there won't be as much regarding that program with assistance, but now we're moving towards, okay, how can we help with the landlord and the tenant and see if we can come to a common ground. So there's more to come with that. But yeah, the apartment association, also the city. There's a lot of things online where you can learn about, because landlords and property owners, they have rights as well. So I would check those out.
Yeah, and I could just put a plug in too that United Way, or I am with the city and county helping to staff a landlord property manager engagement committee, and we are planning an upcoming engagement, looks like in the month of November. So we are going to be reaching out to a lot of the landlord and property managers here in the community to see where there's some common ground and where there might be opportunities for us to work closer and better together so that we can get more individuals into housing, or where there are issues, they know where there are other resources and resources for them as well.
Thank you so much, everyone. We do have lots of questions coming in, but for the sake of time, we will capture all of these and make sure they get answered in our post-email communications. Thank you for your interest around that. We do have an outgoing message from our Lead United Council.
Hello, Jillian again. Thank you to all of our speakers and our facilitator, Angie, for the content and powerful information presented today. And of course, thank you to our donor network for making this work possible through your annual investment. Please consider filling out the survey in the chat that Molly put in to help us create content like this in the future. As you recall, when you registered for this event, you were asked to submit a question for the panelists. The most common question was, how can I help?
There are three ways. One, the first one, give, right? Continue to give at the Lead United level, or if you aren't a member, consider joining Lead United through our Step Up program, or you can grow your gift from $500 a year to $1,000 a year over a 3-year step period, with the other half of that being funded by generous donors in the community. Second, you can also invite you to extend your own legacy by contributing to the United Way of Dane County Foundation, which builds an endowment to support affordable housing units through loans to developers. As the loans are repaid, the dollars are available kind of in a continuous, perpetual, sustainable loan fund.
The next step to take is to advocate. We encourage you all to share with one another here today what motivates you to make this investment in our community. But don't let these conversations stay in the Zoom call. Share with your team and your colleagues about why you give, and encourage others to consider making a gift as well.
And lastly, save the dates for our upcoming events. We've got a lot of stuff going on. July 12th, we'll be joining Link for their Back to School Bash event. August 22nd, we'll be volunteering with the United Way of Dane County Community Kickoff. We're also raising money at a United Way Golf Scramble on May 12th, next Friday, hosted by Link. And lastly, please join us for our annual Lead United Member Appreciation event, second annual, October 25th, Small Plates, Big Impact, where you'll learn more about impact of your gift while sampling some small plates from local food vendors. Really great event. And Angie can take it from here.
I'll be extremely quick because I know that we are at our time already. So I do want to just thank everybody for being here today. You can all help us overcome the issues in our community to move more families towards financial stability and towards family well-being. Please be sure to give generously, advocate and educate as often as you can, and give of your time and talent. We achieve collective impact together. It's the power of many working for all. And if you aren't already following us on our different social media platforms, here is the information for you. And I'm sure Molly and others will be able to send that out to you afterwards if you don't have the links to those things. But again, thank you so much for all of you being here. Thank you for our presenters. You're amazing and fabulous. And thank you for the work that you are doing in our community. And thank you so much for Lead United for giving us the opportunity to be able to do this morning. So thank you so much.